Raymond, we had a huge episode last week, the 300th episode of the GoldCast. It was a great episode, great feedback. And we have decided that in honor of the 300th episode, we're going to do one more thing for the fans. So why don't you let them know what that's going to be?
That's right. So strap in, folks, because it's going to be a wild one in this episode. For the 300th time, we're going to be talking about who the 49ers pick as their next quarterback.
That wasn't even intentional. It's just the way it turned out. 300. We have talked about that at least 300 times.
This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
And our esteemed co-host,
Jonny Dell.
What's up, buddy?
Yeah, welcome back.
Man, it's good to be back. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, man, you know what? Honestly, we couldn't think of anyone that we wanted to hear more from than you, Jonny Dell. If you guys aren't familiar, he's been on the show before, Jonny Dell of Jonny Dell's Football Academy, one of the best YouTube channels on there, one of the best places to go if you just want to see the X's and O's of the Kyle Shanahan system and how the 49ers play football. We can't recommend it enough. We'll make sure that there's a link to your show in the synopsis for this episode. But Jonny, we are here to talk some business because the Niners have been busy, very, very busy this offseason. Obviously, we had a huge free agency. I believe we won free agency, if you were to ask me. But then, of course, this crazy 49er internet breaking moment where we trade with the Miami Dolphins and we go from the 12th pick of the draft to the 3rd pick of the draft. Now, everyone's dying to hear your take. What are your thoughts first on just the actual move to go from 12 to 3?
Well, I think it's what everybody figures. I mean, it's what they said in their press conference. You don't go from 12 to 3 for anybody but a quarterback. And so this is obviously a move to bring in a young quarterback. And the buzz right now is what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo. Does he stay or does he go? And many people are going to believe that they want to bring in a guy. You don't spend a 3rd overall pick on somebody who you don't want to commit your franchise to. But I think the other side of that is, I think what we've also seen from this offseason is that when highly touted quarterbacks have been traded, there has been a large draft haul and picks brought for them. So is this a situation where Jimmy's gone? I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's here for this season. What happens after this season? I think they're looking at it that what they've given up to move up to 3, they can get back. Whether that be with a trade for Jimmy next year, or if he goes and takes us to the promised land, do you move on from a quarterback from like that, or do you hold a young guy in behind? And then when, if Jimmy continues to succeed, do you end up looking at shipping that guy off who was highly touted that you can get a large draft haul back for? I don't know. I think there's a lot of people trying to speculate on what they're trying to do, and it's a lot of this organization we've seen, unlike what was seen in the past. You don't know what they're actually going to do, and you don't know what they're actually thinking.
Yeah, that's one thing about this 49ers brass is they keep things really close to the vest. And throughout the entire tenure of the Lynch and Shanahan journey thus far, very rarely have leaks come out that have actually proved to be true. And we've heard lots of things left and right, but rarely has any of it proved to be true. And for instance, a lot of people are up in arms because they're saying that Mac Jones might be the guy that we're going to go with, and people are all up in arms in that. And I'm like, you know what? If something leaks out of the office, the Niners want you to know whatever it is, and generally speaking. So I don't necessarily believe that Mac Jones is the guy. If that's leaking out of the office, I almost think that almost means it's positively not Mac Jones, for instance, if that's what they're saying it is. I think they like a lot of disinformation out there, and they've been pretty good about that the whole time. I also agree with you. I don't think Jimmy is leaving. I think they believe they can compete for a Super Bowl right now. I think it's kind of the same thing, right? Like, you don't reload at the level they just did and then hand those keys to a rookie who's never played in the Kyle Shanahan system, never played a single down of NFL football, and is now going to go in the hardest division that the NFL has to offer. I just don't think you hand the keys to that guy on day one, regardless of how much potential you think he has. Jimmy G has already shown he's more than capable of taking us to a Super Bowl. He's executed, of all the quarterbacks that have been in a 49er uniform, he's the most capable of executing the Kyle Shanahan system the best and at the highest level. And whether he needs to be a game manager, he can game manage. Whether he needs to take over, like in a game against New Orleans, he can take over. If you need him to just convert on third down, he can convert on third down. He can do whatever Kyle Shanahan needs him to do. I think a lot of times that really gets I think that gets put under the rug, and I don't think that gets appreciated enough. Jimmy G, in a lot of ways, is like a quarterback Swiss Army knife for Kyle Shanahan. He can do whatever Kyle Shanahan wants to do. I think the fact is that more than anything else, it's his health that's been the major problem. It's something we've talked about at length. You know, us, the three of us personally, online, and this is something that we've all talked about on 49 Twitter, 49 Instagram. It's not really, I think for us, it's never been a question of his talent. It's always just a question of his health. But I think he doesn't get enough credit for the fact that he is whatever Kyle Shanahan needs him to be in any particular game, and he's really good at that. And I think that the belief is that if Kyle Shanahan or if Jimmy G is still healthy, with all the weapons that they have given him, with the offensive line that they have given him, I think they believe they still can compete for a Super Bowl this year. And I just don't believe that they're sitting there right now going, yeah, whichever rookie we get, we can go to the Super Bowl with this guy. I just don't think that's really realistic in today's NFL.
I think you're 100% right, and you know what I think a lot of this, it goes back to what John Lynch said. I think about a month ago, he was talking about how much are they going to insulate the quarterback position against injury, and how much resources do you actually pour into that. I think they absolutely went into this offseason saying we cannot have 2020 again. You can't have a season that gets torpedoed again because your starting quarterback is on the bench. You can't have it. You don't get that many opportunities in the NFL. And I love Jimmy G as much as the next guy, but he was on the bench too much for injury. And it's been 2 seasons. You can't have another season of Nick Mullins where there was many winnable games, and we all were, pulling our hair out and throwing things at the TV because you have a quarterback just giving the ball over. It reminded me of JT O'Sullivan, where it was like, it's just, there's another turnover. Oh, fantastic. That's awesome, So I think this is both looking for the future, and if it doesn't work with Jimmy, you have a plan B. You're not going to have, like, we have to tear the whole thing down and rebuild. We're transitioning. If he does great. We're fantastic, but we cannot have another 2020. Can't happen.
Absolutely. Raymond, I want to turn it to you because Jonny brought up something good, and I want to hear what your thoughts are on this. So he talked about, it's really a question about what we do at the end of this season with Jimmy. So Raymond, let me give you 2 scenarios, and then Jonny, I want to hear your response to it as well. But Raymond, so let's go. Jimmy balls out, takes us to either NFC Championship or Super Bowl. What happens? Let's say we what happens if we lose in the NFC Championship or we win the Super Bowl? What happens to Jimmy G next season? What do you think the 49ers do? Because now we have a position where we've got Justin Fields, Mac Jones, possibly Zach Wilson. We have one of these 3 guys standing behind Jimmy G, and now we've lost in the NFC Championship or we're hoisting Lombardi. What happens in either scenario?
I think that's pretty easy. I mean, for the sake of argument, let's just say Jimmy has similar numbers that he does in 2019, where he's putting up, his stats are almost identical to Aaron Rodgers that season, at least in the touchdown and interception ratio part. He was top 10 in third down conversions and for most of the season. So if he has a season like that again, when he's healthy and he's a couple years removed from that in the ACL injury, and even more, ingrained in the Kyle Shanahan offense, then they're going to keep him. And the young quarterback is just going to continue to develop underneath him on the bench, because you're not going to rush that just because, like, we got, he's still going to be on, that other quarterback is still going to be on the rookie quarterback that we draft is still going to be on a rookie contract. So that's the type of money that does sit on the bench. and Jimmy's going to command the type of money that is in the starting lineup. And if he's healthy and plays well, and, best case scenario, we win the Super Bowl, gosh, poor Niners, we have to sit this rookie on the bench because our starting cornerback got the job done that we wanted him to get done in the first place. What a horrible problem to have.
I think you're right. Jonny, what are your thoughts on this? So, kind of to bookend your own scenario here, what happens at the end of next year if Jimmy we lose the NFC Championship or we win the Super Bowl?
Well, I think it also it would depend on if we lost the NFC Championship, how. And I think it also would depend on who we draft. I have different opinions on how ready each guy is. But I think it really comes down to, you keep him around. You don't move on something like that. Bill Walsh did the same thing with Steve Young. He brought Steve Young in when Joe Montana was dealing with some elbow issues, and Joe Montana played like Joe Montana, and so Steve Young sat. And if Jimmy G plays like Joe Montana, then whoever the rookie is going to sit. Same thing happened with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, is that Brett Favre continued to play like Brett Favre. So even though they weren't winning a Super Bowl, he was playing like Brett Favre. So you don't move on, even though you think the world of the rookie. You're going to ride out the horse that got you to the dance. And you don't, it's like the old Tower of Power song, the Oakland Band. You don't change horses in the middle of the street. So
I think that's right. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, and I think that's I think that's probably the easiest question we'll answer tonight, just because it would be really uncharacteristic of any team to move on from a Super Bowl quarterback, and start another quarterback that they drafted the previous year. I mean, the closest scenario is the Eagles, but that's because they lost their starting quarterback and the backup won the Super Bowl, and then they went back to the starter after that, because we know that, for some reasons, Nick Foles only plays good when, the lights are brightest, and he just can't seem to get it together outside of those lights. But, hey, at least it counted, at least he played your best when it counted the most. So kudos to them. But, speaking of quarterbacks, Jonny, you said you have your takes on what each of these guys, how ready you think they are. I mean, we let's trim some of the fat here. Like, there's a large presumption that the 6'6" Trevor Lawrence, 220 pounds, is going to go to the Jaguars with Urban Meyer. So let's take him out of the equation and just assume that that's going to happen. And we also know that the Jets today traded Sam Darnold to the Carolina Panthers for a haul of picks. And those haul of picks are, we can, assuming that when the Niners get to the point, if they get to the point, I think it's kind of inevitable that we're going to get to a Jimmy G trade. He's going to be worth more than what Sam Darnold got, because Sam Darnold is a failed 3-year quarterback, whereas Jimmy G is just an unhealthy, successful quarterback. Let's also maybe presume, let's keep Zach Wilson in there, just in the off chance that the Jets go a different direction. So why don't we start with Wilson? What's your take on Wilson's readiness, and also how that relates to the Kyle Shanahan offense?
Well, Wilson did play in a West Coast offense, and I think he can operate that pretty well. He's got a live arm. He's a good athlete. He can make some very impressive throws. He has the wow throws. You see him, and he doesn't have to have a stable platform. He can make off-platform throws, so that helps when you have a muddy pocket. I think to go to the next level. Is he a day one plug-in starter? I'm not 100% certain. I think he's on the more raw side of that. You saw that in the game that BYU played this year. He did not handle pressure well, and he did not handle the blitz well. That is something that I can guarantee you, because that's the only film that teams have on him from 2020, that wherever he lands, if it's with us or somewhere else, the first start he has, he's going to get blitzed the crap out of. And so is he able to? Is it going to be able to handle that early? I'm not sure. So I think he's somebody who will be a very successful quarterback in the NFL. I'm not sure it's going to be day one. I think, it depends on his learning curve. I don't know what his learning curve is. We couldn't see it from 2020. We couldn't see the progression, so I don't know.
Okay, and who knows? I mean, if Zach Wilson goes to the Jets, he's obviously going to be a day one starter because they don't have a starter. They have C.J. Beathard, but C.J. Beathard's there to back up and light a fire under anyone else's ass who's going to be the starter. So how about the most intriguing option that a lot of Niner fans seem to be gravitating to? Jeff Garcia thinks the Niners should pick this quarterback, and that is, of course, the 6'3", 228-pound Justin Fields. What do you think about him?
I think Justin Fields is an interesting prospect. I think there's almost, I think, a philosophical difference between the two, because the two guys that are being talked about most for us is most likely is Justin Fields and Mac Jones, right? And the fan base seems very, very heavily weighted towards Justin Fields and very, very much against Mac Jones. And I've questioned why. And when you go back and look at their games, you see two very different styles of quarterback. And part of me wonders, is the fan love for Justin Fields the envious eyes that you see with the Chiefs, with Kyler Murray, with Russell Wilson? Is it really believing that Justin Fields will be that kind of elite talent, or is it wanting what everybody else has? With Justin Fields, he is a remarkable athlete, and he can make some very impressive throws. But he's probably, in my opinion, at least 2 years away from being NFL ready. He really does not have a good grasp of understanding where the ball needs to get to when he's blitzed. You can see that in the games, that when he gets pressured, that's when bad things will happen for them. And he doesn't necessarily turn the ball over a lot, but he will eat pressure. He'll eat sacks, because when that breaks down and he doesn't have the time to go through what the plays that are given, he tends to crumble. He doesn't see the pressure well, whether it's coming up the middle or off the edges or from blitzers. I think he needs 2 years. Really, he's very raw. He's probably the most, out of the three guys that are most likely to land with us, I think he's got the highest ceiling, but he also has one of the lower floors. And so he's a very intriguing prospect. He's somebody that you think, Kyle could do a lot of things with him. What he really reminds me of, it, because I'm hearing a lot of Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott comparisons. I don't know if that's what you guys have seen. I don't know if he's going to be a Deshaun Watson, because Deshaun Watson had two very successful years of college football that he had on film, and was a proven winner, was a guy who played against the best competition for 2 years and did very, very well. And Justin Fields hasn't had that. He doesn't have the experience. So he's not going to be Deshaun Watson year 1, year 2. It's just not, that's unrealistic. So I think he's a little ways out there. He could be that. I think closer comparison, and people probably hate me for saying this, is Robert Griffin III. Because if you look at Robert Griffin coming out of college, it was very similar. Because we look back at Robert Griffin, and it's easy to look at him now and go, Robert Griffin. But when he was coming out, he was highly touted. And we were talking the number 2 overall pick, right? It was him and Andrew Luck. And he had one of the greatest pro days that we'd ever seen. Everybody's talking about Justin Fields' pro day. They were the buzz on Robert Griffin III after his pro day was through the roof. But you can also see that when he wasn't given the ability to sit and learn, that stunted his development long term. So with Fields, I think he's a very intriguing prospect. To me, if we draft him, that almost guarantees that, barring injury, Jimmy G is around for 2022. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and if Jimmy G's successful, that will go play in favor of Justin Fields' development. Now, okay, so you already mentioned him, but let's move on to Mac Jones, 6'2", 214 pounds, more prototypical pocket passer. Seems much more akin to some of the quarterbacks, most of the quarterbacks that Kyle Shanahan's worked with. He's never really drafted or been heavily involved with picking the quarterbacks that he's coached, with the exception of Kirk Cousins. So what do you think about Jones?
I do have maybe a little bit of bias. I live about 70 miles from Tuscaloosa, so I get to watch a lot of Alabama games. That being said, when I've gone back and watched Mac Jones, I'm seeing that for the third, fourth time with Mac Jones. So there's a familiarity there. I think a lot of the fan hate comes just from the fact he's not a premier athlete. I mean, he's not an exciting pick from the terms of you're not seeing this guy that could create outside of the structure of the offense. And again, this comes back to philosophy, and this is where I wonder, where is the fan break from Kyle Shanahan? Because if we just step back, and this was why I think a lot of people are putting two and two together on Mac Jones, the 49ers, is from a philosophical standpoint. Mac Jones, if you can get him in a system that is going to be very effective, and you're asking a guy to deliver the ball from the pocket, I don't think there's a better quarterback in this draft. I mean, there's guys that are much more physically talented, might have a little bit more live of an arm, but if we're talking about sitting and being able to run the offense efficiently and stand in, and this is another thing that Shanahan values, is stand in and deliver a ball while taking a hit. Mac Jones is your guy. It's not exciting, but you want to see the perfect example, go watch the game against Mizzou, okay? It was the second touchdown he threw in that game. They come with a blitz. It's cover one, so 5-man pressure. They get a free rusher off the left side. He's got a slot receiver on a crossing route, and he's got to wait for him to clear the middle safety. And he's got to look the middle safety off to keep him, and then allow the receiver time to get across the field so the safety can't break. And he drops back, he looks to his left, waits, and then delivers a perfect ball while getting just hammered to his receiver in stride for a touchdown. That's the kind of thing that Kyle Shanahan values, is that ability to deliver while under pressure. Why did he like C.J. Beathard? His toughness, right? Why did he like Mullins? His toughness, right? Why is he like Jimmy G? Because he can deliver a ball with pressure coming. And the fourth touchdown that Alabama scored in the same game, Mizzou, he hit Devontae Smith on a corner route from the slot. Same thing, getting hit right as he throws, falling back, and delivers a perfect ball to the back of the end zone. If you're talking a guy who's going to be able to stand in the pocket and deliver the ball, he can do that, and he can make all the throws. And so we're talking pro ready. Mac Jones can step in maybe week 4 and run this offense. The offense that he ran at Alabama is very similar to Kyle Shanahan's with Steve Sarkisian. It's very, very similar. It just ran out of shotgun a lot more than we did. But I think if you look at philosophically what we have seen from Kyle Shanahan for the past 5 years, going back to Atlanta, Mac Jones is the guy that fits that philosophy to a T. That's why people are putting 2 and 2 together.
Right. Now, I mean, the counterpoint being that, hey, Kyle Shanahan interviewed for the offensive coordinator, was given an interview opportunity at Atlanta. He didn't necessarily pick Matt Ryan, but he made Matt Ryan a better quarterback. He didn't pick Matt Schaub, but he got the best out of Matt Schaub during the year he was there. He didn't want RG3. The owners wanted RG3. He got the best out of RG3 during that system with his dad, Mike. And then they actually did come together and had a meeting to the minds and pick Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins style, I mean, does that seems to run along similar lines as this Mac Jones line. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I don't love the Kirk Cousins comparison with Mac Jones, just because Kirk Cousins, I think, is more of a gambler than Mac Jones is. I think Mac Jones, I would compare him more along the lines of a Matt Ryan than a Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is going to try and force the ball down the field more than Matt Ryan would. But and you can also then look at Cleveland, that he had Johnny Manziel thrust upon him, and that's why he left Cleveland. So he could have gone wherever he wanted after Cleveland. I mean, everybody knew Kyle was the man, and he chose Atlanta. So there's that portion of it. To me, Mac Jones is a Kyle Shanahan system quarterback. Does that mean that that's where they're going to go? I don't know. I mean, obviously he's seen the success that dual threat guys have had around the league, and maybe his mind's changed, and he's seeing how he can open up the running game with it more and do all sorts of other things. But I think if we're talking about somebody who can fit in that quarterback, in the current quarterback room, because if you bring in Justin Fields, you have to change. You have to have the Justin Fields offense, and then you have the Jimmy G offense, and then you have the Josh Rosen offense. If you have Mac Jones in there, you have the Kyle Shanahan offense, and Jimmy G, Mac Jones, Josh Rosen, you're expecting all of them to run that offense. And so that's where I see the philosophical connect a little bit more, because if you bring in Justin Fields, you're going to have to run a different offense for him.
Yeah, and I think if I had to be a guessing man, because last Friday Mike Lombardi made the claim that, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan disagree on which quarterback to draft. If I was a betting man, I'd say Kyle Shanahan's probably leaning Mac Jones, and John Lynch is probably leaning towards one of these other more dynamic players like a Justin Fields, or to a lesser degree a Trey Lance. If people have Trey Lance really high on their boards for some reason, I look at him as an even lesser version of Justin Fields. I mean, what do you think there?
I think you're 100%. I think the biggest reason there is he can operate the play action pass game really well. He's played under center a lot, so there's less of an adjustment there. Whereas Justin Fields, like, one thing I noticed, his footwork is going to need a lot of work. That's when I say he's 2 years away. Footwork needs a lot of work. Timing offense needs a lot of work. Throwing with anticipation into zones needs a lot of work. He doesn't see the routes developing before they are. He has to see the receiver open. It reminds me a little bit of Kaepernick. So with Kaepernick, he would have to see the guy open, and then he would make it up with the arm. That was great for a little while, and then teams started catching on to that. Fields, the Shanahan offense is about timing. It's your feet are tied to those routes, and his footwork leaves a lot to be desired. Now, it's not saying that a quarterback that has bad footwork can't be successful. Deshaun Watson's footwork is horrible. I find it funny that fans were talking about how bad Jimmy G's footwork was and then crying for Deshaun Watson. I'm going, if you want to see bad footwork, go see Deshaun Watson. But he's extremely successful with it, because he that's just how he plays, and he can still be successful in how he plays. But a Shanahan offense, the routes are tied to the footwork, and so that it's going to take Fields a while. Same thing with Lance. He did a lot of handing off in there, and there was a lot of quarterback running as well. Again, his one game, look at the same thing. He dealt with issues of identifying pressure. His performance was not great. Throwing the ball, running the ball was great, but what does Shanahan ask his quarterbacks to do? To deliver from the pocket. And if you're insulating from injury, is Kyle going to want to go down the road of putting a quarterback in harm's way like they did with RG3? I don't see it. So
I agree with that. And then one thing I've actually been saying this week in defense of a traditional pocket passer, did we not just watch a traditional pocket passer walk away with his 7th Super Bowl ring against the most dynamic, most talented QB we have in the NFL right now? Didn't we just see the traditional old school quarterback walk away with the 7th ring? I mean, it clearly still works in the NFL. I think it's funny how more mobile quarterbacks forever were kind of looked down upon. And then slowly through the Russell Wilsons, the Patrick Mahomes, the Deshaun Watsons of the world, that is changing. And now there seems to be this backlash where like pure pocket passers are somehow not efficient, which I think is insane, because it has always been the most effective, the most successful style of quarterbacking in the NFL has always been pure pocket passers. And I think Tom Brady is just excellent proof that still works even in 2021.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the last 4 teams in the playoffs, or even down to the last 8 teams, you had mostly pocket quarterbacks. You look at the NFC side, you have Drew Brees, you had Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, those were the three teams that were really in it for the Super Bowl. Those are traditional pocket quarterback guys. The guy who can deliver from the pocket will always be valuable. Does that mean that, these dual threat guys, we got beat by one? It was not a fun experience. But if you look at, why is Josh Allen, why are the Bills, soaring? It's not because Josh Allen is getting better at making plays outside of the pocket. It's because he's getting better at making plays inside the pocket. Now, he has the element outside, but he's getting better at delivering the ball from the pocket. That will always be the number one thing that will determine a quarterback's success. Patrick Mahomes didn't win a Super Bowl because of one of his plays running out right and throwing a no-look pass. It was delivering a 3rd and 15 from the pocket.
Yep. That's absolutely.
Ouch, and that stings. And we got beat. We also got beat by the Ravens in 2012 by a traditional pocket passer in that game.
Ugh. Playing the game of his life.
Just to perhaps plant the seed in fans that, don't be surprised if Mac Jones is the one that lands in our plate, because Kyle Shanahan, at the end of the day, per his contract, has the final say, regardless of what John Lynch and company might think. Because who knows, Adam Peters might have a different opinion too. Who knows what he thinks? I know there's other quarterback. Chris Sims is really high on Kellen Mond. I don't really know him very well, and I know Kyle Trask has very impressive measurements, but is far from NFL ready. But, as far as the Niners are concerned, they're in the number 3 spot. So according to Kyle, and I believe him wholeheartedly, they have multiple guys that they think, that can do this. And so, but going in the 3 spot guarantees them one of those guys. It's just a question of who at this point, because, there's obviously wide consensus of who the Jets and the Jags are going to pick. So the Niners have to have, 2 to 3 other guys that they think can still get it done after those 2 picks are gone.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so final question, and then we got to run, Johnny. Johnny, you're on the board. Make the prediction. Who do the Niners walk away with? Let's go. Trevor Lawrence goes first. Zach Wilson goes second. Now we've got the rest of the field. Who do the 49ers pick? What's your guess?
I'm going to get tar and feathered for it, but I think it's going to be Mac Jones. Just because you don't have to change the quarterback room. If you're looking at somebody that you're going to have coexist with Jimmy G, that's your guy. Justin Fields, you bring him in, Jimmy G's still staying. I don't think either way Jimmy G goes, Justin Fields comes in, you're not going to have a seamless transition from one quarterback to the other. So to me, if you're looking at Kyle Shanahan believes in his system, which he believes in his system, then it's Mac Jones.
I love it. Well, we're going to find out very soon here, April 29th. I cannot wait. I'm like a kid at Christmas right now. Every night is Christmas Eve, and I just want to get to the draft already. I cannot wait.
Absolutely, yeah. I think whoever they draft, you're gonna get a good quarterback. And they're gonna be able to do something with him. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying if they draft Fields, no. I think you will have a premier talent. They will make the most out of him. Same thing with Mac Jones. This will still be a top 5 offense no matter who they get in there. So, yeah.
I totally agree. And I've said the same thing on the show. When we were making predictions last week, I said it doesn't matter because whoever they get, they'll be successful with. Kyle Shanahan is so good at creating offenses based on the strengths of his quarterbacks, and he's really good at masking the weaknesses and making it very difficult to penetrate those weaknesses for the opposing defenses. So I think we're going to be fine. But all right, folks, what say you? Johnny Dell says Mac Jones. What do you think about the 49ers drafting Mac Jones? Sound off in the comments. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll be back on Thursday to talk some Giants baseball. Baseball is back finally, and we're going to talk about it. So that'll all be happening on Thursday's episode. And so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis first, baby.
And our esteemed co-host,
Johnny Dell.
Hey, bud, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we will see you very, very soon.